142 years of history full of suicide, madness, disease, murder, and torture. Sounds gruesome? It is. But what exactly are we talking about? Well, we are talking about the looming, gloomy high stone walls, crumbling corridors, and stark cells that once housed thousands of hardcore criminals at the Eastern State Penitentiary. With such a blood-tear and pain-filled history, it is not hard to imagine the spirits of troubled souls left behind to roam its abandoned halls. Considered to be one of the most haunted locations in the world, the Eastern State Penitentiary first opened its doors in 1829. It was the world's most expensive prison and boasted grand architecture, modern luxuries, and notorious inmates, including Al Capone. But now, it has crumbled into a mass of deteriorating cell blocks, which are recognized as a national historic landmark. And more than that, there's the dark cloud of horror all over the place. Is it the prisoners still seeking salvation? Is it the murderers still preying on new victims? Let's find out more about this abandoned location smeared in mystery and horror. In this video, we will look into the mystery of the Eastern State Penitentiary. Before the opening of the Eastern State, prisons were nothing more than holding pens for the unwanted and corrupt. Men, women, and children were housed alongside petty criminals and violent killers. In the late 18th century, the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prison, led by founding father Benjamin Franklin, worked to transform these wasted prisons into facilities that fostered reform. Their ideas became tangible in 1822 when construction began on the Eastern State. The prison was designed to hold 253 prisoners, each occupying solitary confinement cell for their entire sentence. The harshest punishment, solitary confinement, was meant to help criminals find penance, remorse, and salvation. But the reality was not that great. In reality, it drove many prisoners insane. But the place was designed with passion. It was an expensive undertaking to bring the groundbreaking design to fruition. It featured vaulted ceilings and skylights to let in God's light, and each cell was equipped with a toilet, running water, heat, and a Bible. After its completion, more than 3,000 prisons all over the world copied its designs, systems, and practices. Eastern State's most famous inmate was undoubtedly Chicago gangster Al Capone. From 1929 to 1930, Capone served 8 months for carrying a concealed, deadly weapon. Though his cell was the nicest at Eastern State, furnishings including a desk, lamp, painting, and a cabinet radio, he complained during his incarceration that he was haunted by the ghost of James Clark, one of the victims of the St. Valentine's Day massacre in Chicago. The massacre was the result of gang rivalry, and Capone led one side of it. We can say that solitary confinement even plays with the minds of the history's most notorious criminals. Or maybe he was really haunted. Who is to say? The prison's most famous figure was Warden Herbert Hardboiled Smith, who ruled the prison with an iron fist during the 1920s and 30s. During his reign, the state only sentenced prisoners to the Eastern State who needed Warden Smith's fierce reform tactics. The harsh punishments used on prisoners are enough to make you shiver even without seeing a ghost. There was the water bath in which inmates were dunked then and hung out on the wall in winter until ice formed on the skin. the mat chair which bound an inmate so tightly that circulation was cut off, later necessitating amputations. The iron gag, in which an inmate's hands were tied behind the back and strapped to an iron collar in the mouth, so that any movement caused the tongue to tear and bleed. And the hole, a dank underground cell where unfortunate souls had no light, no human contact, no exercise, no toilet, and little food and air. Did the prison serve executions? Although executions were not carried out at Eastern State, the prison was home to its fair share of murders. At least 2 guards were murdered over the years, as were many inmates. Hundreds of others died of disease and old age, and the grounds are still haunted with their spirit. Isolation was impressed upon prisoners, and each inmate wore heavy masks that prohibited communication with one another. The loneliness and isolation was so oppressing that many prisoners took their own lives. Do you know you can experience these chills too? As scary and weird it sounds, it is true. Eastern State Penitentiary is open year-round and offers many different tours. During the summer, twilight tours allow visitors to experience the Eastern State during early night hours. It even offers winter adventure tours during the cold months. Now the big question. Is it really haunted? Well, the prison, which closed in 1971, is considered by several sources to be one of the most haunted places in America. Dozens of paranormal researchers visit it every year and report it as a hub of otherworldly activities. Perhaps most convincingly, there are stories of eerie experiences by visitors, staff, guards, and inmates since the 1940s. Cellblock 12 is known for echoing voices and cackling. Cellblock 6 for shadowy figures darting along the walls. Cellblock 4 for visions of ghostly faces. Many people have reported seeing a silhouette of a guard in one of the towers. Footsteps, walls, whispers, the same stories over and over again. One of the most legendary tales comes from Gary Johnson, who helps maintain the crumbling old locks at the prison. In the early 1990s, he had just opened an old lock in cell block 4 when he says a force gripped him so tightly that he was unable to move. He described a negative, horrible energy that exploded out of the cell. He said tormented faces appear on the cell walls and that one form in particular beckoned to him. About 70,000 people have spent some part of their lives in this prison, and many experienced their ends there. But is it really haunted is a question that will have multiple answers. Perhaps hauntings are a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you want to have a haunted experience, your imagination just might make sure you do. Certainly, there are thousands of visitors who say they've experienced odd feelings, sudden chills, strange sounds, and yet there are plenty who say they have not. What we end up believing is our choice, but as far as we know, the Eastern State Penitentiary is full of mystery, horror, and a history of hosting the world's most gruesome criminals. But do you believe in ghosts? Have you ever had such experiences? Let us know in the comments. And now that we have come to the end of this video, you know the drill. Like our video, subscribe to our channel, share it with fellow enthusiasts, and until we meet next, stay curious, stay awesome. Volt of Vokes signing off.